It's time for round one. It's going to be James' turn on the left and Chris Van Meter on the right. They're just kicking things off. It's a Rootbound Craig on the right from Chris with real monsters.
The realest monsters. Yep. So James chose Zendikar, so he gets access to those fetch lands. So he has a more versatile mana base than Chris. Though Chris has that Sylvan Caryatid now. He has access to any color of mana that he wants. So if he wants to play a Thunderbreak Regent next turn, if he has another land, that can come down pretty easily.
Yeah, and these two decks are actually relatively similar in their kind of game plan. They're both trying to really ramp up to playing some very efficient threats at the top end.
That's right.
But I like seeing these small decisions that they made through the blocks that they chose. Because Chris, he ended up with Birds of Paradise as well as that Sylvan Caryatid. Where on the side of James, he ended up going with that Birds of Paradise, and then actually Lotus Cobra became his 2-mana accelerant of choice. Both players still trying to go for some early game stuff. James on Tarmogoyf, Chris on Huntmaster of the Fells. Or, I'm sorry, Den Protector.
Den Protector, that's right. He does have a Huntmaster in his deck, and he has 2 more in his sideboard. We may see that come in this matchup because it can flip if he chooses not to play a spell, and that can take out one of James's very vital early game accelerants. James has a bit of a vulnerable early game with that Lotus Cobra and Tireless Tracker, so he will be looking to play those fetch lands early, get those colors of mana online, and keep those creatures alive through the early game.
Yeah, and actually, let's go ahead and mention kind of the vulnerability there. The removal package of both of these decks are very similar. Both of them carrying 4 copies of Lightning Bolt. M11 was the core set that they both chose, which is why you see some of those similar choices there. But on the side of Chris Van Meter, he is running Draconic Roar, whereas James is actually pairing up his Lightning Bolt with some Doom Blades, which is going to be much more effective in this matchup.
That's true. Doom Blade, a great catch-all answer. Stormbreath Dragon has protection from from white, but he does not have protection from Doomblade, so that can come down. Also notable with James's deck, so several of our players hit their goal of raising $3,000 from Big Brothers Big Sisters, a really great achievement, and because they unlocked that achievement, they unlocked extra cards for their decks. So notably, James was the first player to reach that $3,000 level. So he has 2 copies of Liliana in the of the Veil in his deck. What is happening down here, TJ?
So James cracked his Arid Mesa, and I'm not certain to quite what happened. It looks like there's some confusion about whether or not there's even an option in the deck to grab, because he has a Jund deck. I don't know.
He does have 1 mountain on his deck list, so he should be able to get that.
Okay. All right, we got a little bit
ahead of ourselves, but that's okay.
Okay. So actually, when he had registered, these players got to register their deck originally at the very beginning.
Yes.
He submitted it with 2 mountains, and then the version that that got into his hands had only 1 version of it when it got fulfilled.
I see.
So now we're all good. James has got his mountain in hand. We've got that swapped out.
Perfect. James notably missing green mana early in the game, and so he needs those early game accelerants. My hunch is that he may have an Olivia Mobilized for War in his hand, and this is why he's fetching this way. Most of the time, he's going to want to get something like a Lotus Cobra down on turn 2.
And we have got a Fauna Shaman, well, I guess now in the graveyard, but that was one of his big ways to make sure that he can get into those large creatures when you're running those 4 copies of Birds of Paradise, and you've got, I guess, the additional, the Sylvan Caryatids, the Fauna Shamans, the Den Protectors. Having that nice option where he can discard one of those lower value creatures and, as the game goes on, really get those powerful ones, but not going to end up existing too long on the battlefield here.
That's right. So for those of you curious about the process for creating these decks, all of the cards used today are provided by Card Kingdom. We are providing these cards for these players for the day, including this Lotus Cobra, the Grove of the Burn Willows. All these cards were provided by Card Kingdom. Our players submitted their deck lists last week, and our fulfillment team busily worked on putting those decks together this week, and we gave the decks to the players this morning. So the players sent in their deck list. We assembled the decks. So the players have not.
Yeah, it's Inferno Titan.
And there's an Inferno Titan.
Oh my! You can see. I bet that was Sam over there making sure they got a shot of the Inferno Titan. But just the difference here: a Lotus Cobra in the graveyard and a 6/6 Inferno Titan on the battlefield. This game is just leaning towards Chris.
That's true. Chris is ahead in the Clash of the Titans right now, though. It looks like James has a Doomblade at the ready to take that down.
And that's kind of where that nice removal suite comes in handy. Chris would not have the same option. He'd have to combine something like multiple Lightning Bolts and Draconic Roars to remove a creature like that. So James buys himself a little bit of time, and Chris just having a couple cards left in hand.
Yeah, I think this is going to be anyone's game because while Chris's removal does not match up particularly well against James's creatures, he has a lot of his big haymakers, the 6-mana spot, cards like Inferno Titan, Grave Titan, and Primeval Titan. All those 6/6s are going to take 2 removal spells to knock down, though Chris may be looking to just go over him with cards like Stormbreath Dragon and Thunderbreak Regent. So depending on the draws here, we may see a really close game.
Looks like I do see that Draconic Roar, but we're going to see a scry here with the Temple of Abandon, the green-red temple. It's so nostalgic seeing all of these just classic Theros cards coming back. I'm getting real excited. Sylvan Caryatid, there's maybe a Stormbreath Dragon on the horizon. The temples.
You know, I think I saw a Den Protector in Chris Van Meter's hand there, so that can actually get back that Inferno Titan, get it back onto the battlefield, and start wreaking havoc on James's board once again. So yeah, the Den Protector actually gives Chris a little bit of an advantage here because if the players are going to be looking to trade off their threats, Chris can recur his more easily than James can recur his own.
Looks like there's going to be, oh, now this is a morph. We don't know what it is. It could be anything.
It could be anything.
He'll have to reveal it at the end. Taking a look at his deck list, it could be anything from a Den Protector to looks like it could be the other Den Protector.
That's true.
Well.
It could be either one. We don't know.
Yeah, so be careful, everybody. There's a lot of potential hidden underneath that card. But when it comes up, it'll be 2 mana. It comes as a 3/2 because it's got that Megamorph.
Megamorph.
And then it's going to be grabbing back probably the Inferno Titan out of the graveyard.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we have James considering his options here. It looks like he has a Tireless Tracker in his hand that he could deploy here. So unfortunately, that is not going to match up well against the Inferno Titan that is inevitably coming back from Chris's graveyard.
Yeah, and it would not surprise me at all to see Chris activate that Den Protector, that Morph ability at the end step of James, just so he can then untap, play it down, eliminate that Tireless Tracker, and be in a really solid position for the game.
Absolutely. The Tireless Tracker also not matching up great against Chris's removal spells. James is fetching here so that he can get that clue token for the Tireless Tracker, though I wouldn't be surprised if we see Chris respond here with a burn spell.
Yeah, he has that Draconic Roar in hand, and I think right now we're seeing this sort of pause as Chris takes a moment to consider his options, because he does only have 3 mana available this turn. If he chooses to go for that Draconic Roar, he would not be looking at casting that Inferno Titan next turn, with the exception of if he draws a land off the top.
That's true. Yeah, the better option for Chris here is probably just going to be to get that Den Protector back, because the Tireless Tracker comes in as a 3/2, and it gets +1/+1 whenever you sacrifice a clue. So even though James is getting 2 clues this turn, he only has 2 mana, so he can only sacrifice one of those clue tokens. They take 2 mana to sacrifice. So regardless, if he can get the Inferno Titan back and play it next turn, that ETB trigger will get rid of the Tireless Tracker.
Reading chat here, we were calling this one the Clash of the Titans. Someone suggesting, how about the Battle of the Beards?
Oh, wow. Yep. I mean, Chris is known for his beard. It is pretty majestic.
It's a pretty amazing one. Yeah.
And there's a Lotus Cobra.
All right, so this is another one. He's got a decent bit of kind of landfall strategy here, which shows itself from it being part of the Zendikar.
That's true. Yep. Yeah, Lotus Cobra, great card from Zendikar, plays very well with the fetch lands that James has in his deck, as does Tireless Tracker, and at some point we may get to see the Gitrog monster as well, James's big top-end creature. Yep,
and even at that point, he's even got Primeval Titan, which, when I asked him about it, the discussion was, so I see you're running 2 Grave Titan, 2 Primeval Titan, and 2 Inferno Titan. Any consideration that maybe they just should have all been Grave Titans? And he said that wouldn't be as fun. So that's a good argument. I'll accept it. Lightning Bolt clears that one away, as well as Inferno Titan. And James, with 4 mana, draws his Rootbound Crag, but he is in dire straits right now.
That's right. Little known fact about Inferno Titan, the 3 damage it deals can be divided between different creatures, so he chose to deal 2 to the Tireless Tracker and 1 to the Lowe's Cobra. So James taking a little bit of a risky line there, but not quite working out for him as Chris is able to just remove his whole board.
Yeah, and having access to that Inferno Titan as well as the Den Protector means that a simple Doomblade, last time we saw James buy himself a couple of turns just by that nice clean removal spell. Now a Doomblade doesn't line it up. There's still going to be pressure on that battlefield in the form of that 3-2, which James is at 13. That's not, an enormous life total against something that's going to be chipping away at a pretty sizable
Absolutely. Chunk. Yeah, that Inferno Titan can inflict a lot of damage very quickly. And don't forget about that Den Protector, too. It can't be blocked by creatures with power less than its power. So if James tries to play down a couple of mana creatures and just try and stabilize, it's not going to get the job done.
And we're going to see Inferno Titan attack in here, and we're going to see a little bit of that fire-breathing ability as well. So this is an attack in for 9 to begin with. That triggered ability is going to deal 3 damage, putting James down to 10. And by just paying that single red mana, that makes it a full attack in for the remaining 10. It's 13 damage. James falls in game 1, but that means that we are going to get to see a little bit of insight from these players here shortly. One of them is going to come join us here in the booth. We're going to get a chance to talk to them a little bit about what this event means to them in the form of mentorship. We're also going to get the opportunity to kind of get a sense of how they're going to be sideboarding. Though, do we want to be... There we go. Now they won't see the opponent's deck list.
We are covering up the deck list here in the booth so that they do not see each other's sideboards. I believe both of these players shared their full deck lists online on Twitter.
Sure, but we won't be a part of it.
But we won't be enabling that.
Yeah, it's block party, so each of these players have ended up with a 3 sets for Magic as well as a core set that they got to pick. And they had to draft these, actually. So over the course of 4 weeks, every Monday, they were in order selecting the next set that they wanted to add into their card pool and seeing what they could do out of this.
Yeah, it was interesting to see a lot of players stayed in their lane. The Professor just went all in on Mirrodin block. James had a pretty good idea going forward of what he wanted to do. He wanted Zendikar to get access to those fetch lands. CVM also really wanted to play that green-red dragon style deck that he enjoyed playing in Standard at the time. Though interestingly enough, CVM was the only player that I know of that got cut off of one of the sets that he wanted. So during the second round of the draft, he really wanted to get, let's see, so he started off with Theros, and he really wanted to follow it up with Gatecrash so that he could get Burning Tree Emissary. A really great 2-drop that will enable him to filter his mana and get a lot of creatures down early. So playing one of those into a mana creature was really strong for him. Kenji, however, snapped up Gatecrash. He really wanted those Shocklands. And so CVM said, you know what? I could build a great deck from just M11 and Theros. I'm doing okay. I'm going to take Dark Ascension and get my Hunt Masters.
Yeah, and Kenji's deck that came out of Gatecrash actually ended up looking real good. Probably the fastest deck that we have in the field.
That's true, and he is playing those Burning Tree Emissaries. So he's playing a very low-to-the-ground, almost like a green-red zoo deck with lots of Experiment 1s, Lightning Mauler, Gore Clan Rampager. If any of you played a red-green zoo deck or Naya Humans back in the days of Gatecrash, this is a deck that you will recognize.
All right, and we are jumping back in. TJ Rogers here, joined once again by Hallie Santo.
Hello, I'm back.
Oh, yes, it's very exciting, and we are going to be jumping right here into Game 2. Chris Van Meter, he just stopped by, talked with us a little bit, and he is jumping into this match, hoping to kind of lock it up 2-0.
Yeah, and quick update from the floor, TJ. So far, Michelle is 1 game ahead of Josh Leckway after resolving a living end. Kenji is up a game over Ashlyn Rose after dealing some lethal blood rush damage with a Gore Clan Rampager in true Gruul fashion. And Jerry Thompson up a game over the Professor with a Wildfire into a Magnivore. So those 3 decks definitely firing on all cylinders.
Wildfire into Magnivore.
Yep.
Good times.
That was a very big Magnivore from what I heard.
Oh, goodness. All right, so it is Jund versus Green-Red. I do see that Haven of the Spirit Dragon in hand, and hopefully we're able to see a little bit more out of the game plan of James. This last game, he really struggled a bit just getting his mana online and keeping up with Chris, who was on the play. He was able to get down that early, the Sylvan Caryatid. And then once he just started playing those massive threats and having access to his Lightning Bolts in addition to that Inferno Titan as a removal spell, it was just so hard for James to make up that lost ground.
That's true. And James off to a bit of a slow start again in this game. I think the slow starts tend to favor Chris for a couple of reasons. James's creatures are a little more vulnerable to removal than Chris's. James's mana creatures are Birds of Paradise and Lotus Cobra, which are vulnerable to those removal spells that Chris Van Meter has. Chris has those Sylvan Caryatids, though, which have hexproof, so if James has a Lightning Bolt in hand, it's not going to find a good target.
Yeah, that's a fine point. Chris was talking about also just bringing in additional pieces of removal as well as the Huntmasters of the Fell. So even more so, those mana creatures and potentially just those early ones like Tarmogoyf or Den Protector, or I'm sorry, Chalice Tracker are going to be vulnerable with those 2 additional copies of Roast coming in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see James looking at his hand there. He needs a couple more lands for that Gitrog monster, but that could come down and join the party anytime now.
I mean, in theory, you only need 1 more land, but then you'll be right back down. In short order.
Yep.
All right, kicking it back. We do have that fetch land, Misty Rainforest, available. We'll have to see him fetch that one later. Chris draws a Roast, and we are going to throw down Huntmaster of the Fells. This is a card he was pretty excited to have heading into the post-board matchups because it does produce that other 2/2 Wolf alongside it, much harder to spot remove.
That's true. So Chris flipping through his Card Kingdom tokens there, looking for something he can use as his wolf friend. And, oh, it looks like it's going to be a zombie. That zombie is actually a 2/2 wolf, and Chris is going to gain 2 life here.
To be honest, I get them mixed up, too. Every single time I see a zombie, I start thinking wolf. When I see a wolf, I think a zombie.
I guess in Eldritch Moon, some of the wolves were zombie wolves.
Ooh, maybe Chris is just, he did get Dark Ascension as one of his sets. He didn't use a whole lot of the cards from it.
And Huntmaster of the Fells is from Dark Ascension. So
exactly.
maybe he's just trying to tie that all together.
Oof, bringing it all full theme because he only used 2 cards. The Striggle Rootgeist and the Huntmasters are the only 2 Dark Ascension cards that he used. So maybe just thinking, all right, well, time to use the tokens. Let's get a little bit more of that set in the mix.
Absolutely. Yeah, so James looking like he might have a removal-heavy hand here. We saw him fire off that Lightning Bolt. It'll be curious to see if he has any more removal, if he has maybe something like one of the 2 Lilianas in his deck, maybe trying to get Chris to commit a big creature to the board and then make him sacrifice it.
Halloween must be unfortunate for TJ. It is. It is. A lot of wolf costumes this year.
That's true. Halloween is coming up, friends.
All right,
get your costumes ready.
We've got the 5th mana coming on down. Oh, I want to see it. I want to see the Gitrog monster so much. It's a classic card. It's a giant 6/6 with Death Touch, which there's just something beautiful about a giant power and toughness with Death Touch attached to it. It always feels a little bit redundant, but I like that they just like to be certain.
That's right.
No 7/7s. They'll all die.
Yep. Gitrog Monster, besides having those really good stats, is also just an awesome card advantage engine for James. We see him playing Jund, a color combination that doesn't typically have a lot of card advantage, but he has plenty of ways to draw cards in his deck between that and the Tireless Tracker.
And James, yeah, no play yet for the turn 5. Might be looking to just hold on to a couple of tools in hand. He's got 6 copies of these Titans. Any one of them would be impressive on this board right now. Inferno Titan would be able to remove the creature. Primeval Titan would give such a massive mana advantage. And even Grave Titan, I mean, that one is just an absolute powerhouse, throwing down some zombies to contend with Chris Van Meter's Wolf.
Absolutely.
Got that right.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So James, if he has a Grave Titan, I think Grave Titan would actually match up quite well against Chris's board because that can just start making creatures. And Chris's removal is mostly spot-based. He can't have, I don't believe he has any sweepers between his main deck and, oh wait, he has Anger of the Gods in his sideboard. Though I'm not sure if he would necessarily bring it in this matchup.
I think I see at least 2 Titans in hand for James, and I think he's just debating which ones would be better. That looks like red to me because he's got the green available for the forests, so I think we are going to gain a life there. It is Inferno Titan. That is going to eliminate one of them, though I think Chris Van Meter is sitting on both a Draconic Roar and a Lightning Bolt. We might see him actually just double spell to remove it.
That's right. Yeah, so there's that Lightning Bolt. and a Draconic Roar. Let's see if he reveals a dragon here. Oh!
Storm Breath!
Storm Breath.
Sorry, it may not be on the battlefield, but I'm hyped all the same. That card is always making itself known. So we get to... Actually, that's nice, because by revealing the dragon from your hand, you get an additional 3 damage. And James and Chris wastes no time in turning that reveal into a play, and now it is a swing in for 4. It can't be bolted, it can't be pathed, it can't be pushed.
That's right. Very patient play here from Chris. James is looking to land his haymakers on 6, and Chris, though he had the Storm Breath Dragon that he could have played when he hit his 5th land drop, wasted no time just taking a step back, making the mana allowances so that he could double spell and get rid of James's creature. So very heads-up play from him there.
And we're seeing a 3-mana play here from James by the look of it. It is going to be Liliana of the Veil. This one able to just go for a quick -2. Target player sacrifices a creature. I think we're targeting Chris based on that Storm Breath Dragon in the graveyard. And that's actually going to be able to just put both of these players into top deck mode. And you mentioned earlier when it comes to just, you know, the card advantage engines that these decks have, I think James comes out ahead with access to the Get Rock Monster Tireless Tracker.
That's true, yeah. Xenagos here for CVM can make some mana and send a, well, it looks like he's sending a Satyr token.
I like it. There's the 0
At
ability
Lily.
of Xenagos the Reveler. You make a 2/2 green and red Satyr with haste. Not enough Satyrs to make a full commander deck, as it turns out, though I have given it a shot. But this is going to be a swing in for 2 at Liliana. A lightning bolt cleans it up, and now it is these 2 planeswalkers looking eye to eye, face to face, wondering who is going to be the one to walk out of this place.
That's true, and a solid play from James here. He's looking to protect that Liliana with everything he has. If he can land something like a Grave Titan, make a lot of blockers, that's probably on his mind right now, and making Chris discard his cards. So yeah, he is looking to get his card advantage engine online as soon as possible, and keep Chris's options as slim as he can.
Now, Hallie, was that Satyr also a zombie?
It looked like it.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we're getting close to Halloween. Even the creatures need to pick up a costume every now and then.
It's spreading. Oh, it's just a Satyr dressed up as a zombie. Don't
Yeah.
worry, everybody.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's still a Satyr.
It's still a Satyr.
Just a costume.
Yeah, I mean, Satyrs like to party. Maybe he's having a costume party today.
That could be true. It's a revel. It's 7 mana coming on down for James. He's got access to, looks like, another Inferno Titan, as well as I think he still has that Primeval Titan in hand. And we are seeing another one of these Inferno Titans. This is going to be eliminating Xenagos the Reveler from contention. So that means that both Chris Van Meter and James Turner have lost their respective planeswalkers, but now it is a lone Inferno Titan facing down against what appears to be a Roast and a Draconic Roar.
Yeah, this has been a really interesting matchup because we see both of these players kind of playing with hammers, as we like to say. Every play we've seen from them has been some kind of a haymaker. It has been the clash of the Titans, indeed. So this game is really going to come down to who can stick a threat for the longest and ride it for as long as they can.
Yeah, and looking at Chris's hand, I think he's got those 2 damage spells and a Fauna Shaman, which means that if he ends up deploying that and has the opportunity to discard a creature, so I'm almost certain it's a Fauna Shaman, though he is holding it in hand and not deploying it.
That's right. So yeah, James can just start getting in with this Inferno Titan here. And unless Chris can put together another one of those 1-2 punches with 2 of his burn spells, that Inferno Titan may just be James's key to victory here.
It's Inferno Titan. We've got some red mana to throw into it. We're going to get the attack. That means 3 damage no matter what. Chris Van Meter likely going to be falling down to 20. Back to the beginning, I suppose. But James, keeping on his life total, he's already down to 9.
That's right. Yeah, James has to be a little bit wary of something like a Storm Breath Dragon here, but he does have some solid removal spells that he can use if that comes out. He does have 2 Doomblades in his deck, so if he can kind of get his card advantage engine online and thin out his deck, he may be able to find one of those.
Oh, it's Primeval Titan, so
Yeah.
nature has called, and James picked up the phone. It's Inferno Titan and Primeval Titan, the green and red. Who's really the green-red deck here?
That's right. I mean, it's anyone's game at this point.
Oh, it looks a lot like James's to me, but
It
that's
looks like it. Yeah.
anyone's match. You know,
Yeah.
Chris has got that removal. He's got some potential. He's been known to make things happen when it comes to dragons, and they don't need to deal with those ground-ridden
Those
giants.
ground pounders, yeah.
So a couple of lands. One thing that I love about the Primeval Titan in this deck is that his access to lands. Not. He's just going to keep getting what lands that tap for mana. There's no utility lands in this deck. That's
right. Yeah, some of the Primeval Titan decks that you commonly see in Standard or in Modern are usually trying to find some utility lands like Slayer Stronghold. But James doesn't need them. Chris is just going to pack it up, and we're going to get James in here to talk a little bit about his deck.
Absolutely. And remember, as you are watching, yesterday we had such a wonderful time and a really successful day in that fundraising for Big Brothers Big Sisters. We want to keep that momentum going today. So while you are watching, keep your eyes on the chat. When you see that it says thechalice.cosvox.com, click that link, head on in to donate and really just help make that connection between people. And that is going to be a really big way to help others really kind of grow into their future and make a big impact on the people around them.
Absolutely, and we have plenty of incentives for donations today, too. Any donation that is made today will be entered to win our VIP bag bundle donated by our generous sponsors at Ultimate Guard. So please head to thechalice.cosvox.com. Give some money to your favorite content creator. All that money will be going to help Big Brothers Big Sisters, and you may also be entered to win one of these awesome prizes.
Yeah, and we've also got this really cool prize today of there's a double playmat for the Chalice art.
There is a double playmat, so many of you on screen are seeing the Chalice playmat that is available to you if you donate $100 to any of our content creators. But we have a double playmat. This is a playmat that 2 players can use, so if you are looking to teach someone how to play Magic or just play Magic with a friend, it's a really great item that you can use.
And that one is, of course, signed by all 8
wow.
of the competitors in this tournament. So that's going to be a really awesome, one-of-a-kind piece. But let's go ahead and break down, catch up with the board on the right. Chris Van Meter with a Temple of Abandon and a Haven of the Spirit Dragon. Taps for generic mana, or colorless mana.
That's correct.
Colorless mana. And then can tap for 1 mana of any color for a dragon specifically, and it also has an activated ability to grab dragons from the graveyard. A Sylvan Caryatid, the hexproof 0/3 mana producer to kind of tie it all together. On the left side with James, we have no longer a Birds of Paradise, a Lightning Bolt Cleaner, clean that one up, and a Marsh Flats, as well as a Grove of the Burn Willows.
That's right, and once again we're seeing the Sylvan Caryatid holding down the ground with its hexproof ability. So that is a pretty strong mark in Chris Van Meter's favor. We also see he has many ways to recur his threats. So many of our games are going to see these players looking to 1-for-1 each other, taking down each other's big creatures with removal spells. But Chris Van Meter, while his removal spells aren't quite as universal as James's Doomblades, he can kind of get his own version of card advantage by recurring his threats with that Haven of the Spirit Dragon and with his Den Protectors if he finds them.
And just to give a quick update on what sets these players both chose on the left with James, he started off with M11 and ended up going with Zendikar, Shadows, Rinshot?
That's correct, yeah.
And we've also got Future Sight. And then on the right side, in Chris's hands, we have got M11 as well, but Theros, Dark Ascension, and Dragons of Tarkir.
M11 was a very popular set for our players, not just because of the Titans and the Lightning Bolts, but because of some very strong sideboard cards that come from M11. We saw a couple people putting the ley lines in their sideboards. So M11 was a very popular choice. And there's another wolf in a zombie costume.
Everybody's dressing up. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, this is a special occasion.
Absolutely. Everybody get your zombie costumes ready if you're going to go to this format, apparently. I'm into it. Next year when we do this, we'll just get all the competitors some zombie costumes. It'll be good.
Yeah, it'll be wonderful.
Garrick, Wild Speaker in hand there for James. A great way to excel in the mana. And otherwise, it's going to be that Wolf and that Caryatid trying to do the best they can. We are seeing some activations there. That looks like green mana. And I wonder if it has the ability to +1 to untap 2 lands if there's a 2-mana spell. Otherwise, might go minus and create a 3/3 beast, which would outclass all the creatures on the board currently.
That's right. So either way, Garrick is going to protect himself here. James had the option of untapping 2 lands, which would give him mana to cast Doomblade, but it looks like he's just looking to add to his board here.
I was really hoping that beast had a zombie costume on.
That beast apparently has a Mox Boarding House costume on. But here comes Stormbreath Dragon.
Yes!
Chris Van Meter's favorite card.
It's so good.
It is so good.
4 damage there at Garrick Wildspeaker, and that lone beast is unable to protect Garrick, who just brought it into being. And so that Storm Breath Dragon cackles with lightning blazing out of its mouth and just kind of knocks that Planeswalker down a peg. Garrick unable to fight it because he's exclusively fighting Planeswalkers these days.
That's right. Yeah, we also may see this Haven of the Spirit Dragon come into play in this game, because if James does have a way to remove that Storm Breath Dragon, CVM has a way of getting it back.
And it's Garrick, and he's back. Doomblade eliminates the Storm Breath Dragon, and now it is just that wolf up against this beast on the left, wolf on the right. One looks like a zombie, but of course it's near Halloween.
That's right. So just to clarify, Chris's creature is a 2/2, James's is a 3/3. So he will not be attacking. And though those Strangleroot Geists are pretty excited to get into the red zone since they do have Undying.
Yeah, both of those come down, and it is a hasty 2-1 for green, and it also has Undying. So those jump down into the fray, and immediately it's a swing in for 4 total after blockers. Chris willing to kind of throw away one of these creatures. One of them an incidental token he got. The other 2 come back bigger, badder than ever.
That's right. So James only stuck on 4 lands here, and that's a little concerning for him because he's looking to play some of those big 6-mana creatures. We're going to see Olivia come down here.
Mobilized for war.
She is ready.
I'm loving it. So this one, Olivia, when another creature enters the battlefield under James's control, he has the option to discard a card. And in doing so, the creature that just entered will get a +1/+1 counter, will get haste, and will be a vampire.
That's right.
So it's just kind of like the zombie join. She just kind of swoops in, gives a little bite, and sends them on their way.
Oh, yeah. She's just like, here you go. Go fly. Be free.
Very effective on Titans if we end up seeing some of those.
That's right. So these Strangleroot Geists are still going to come in here. And tough choice for James. He is at 19, so he could stand to take this damage. But if he blocks, while he can kill both of the Strangleroot Geists with his 3/3s, they will come back stronger. And he will not have such profitable blocks on the backswing.
And that's the interesting little decision point, right? Because it seems like such a straightforward interaction. 2 2/1s are attacking into 3/3s. But if you block them, that's exactly what Chris wants, and that's why he's willing to throw them in there. Huntmaster of the Fells follows it up, and that is going to be a wolf joining this Huntmaster 2/2 and a 2/2, gaining 2 life as well. So if you haven't noticed yet, Chris is up to 29, and that's through a combination of these Huntmasters of the Fells as well as those Grove of the Burnwillows.
That's right. Another interesting thing from James's side, if he cannot play a spell this turn, Chris's Huntmaster is going to flip and turn into a 4/4 with Trample.
And you can see his head in his hand. I think he realized that same thing. Oh, no.
There it goes.
Oh, it's Ravager of the Fells, the 4/4 that is going to throw 2 damage at Olivia.
That's right. The moon is out. The wolves are out.
Oh, goodness gracious. Olivia wasn't mobilized for much of a war, unfortunately.
Apparently not. Didn't bring a big enough pitchfork.
No, mobilized herself right into the path of it. And now, Ravager, these 2 Strangleroot Geists, Sylvan Caryatid, the lone one staying back to kind of watch the farm.
It does a good job of that.
It does, doesn't it? Having that hexproof is just nice. No curses on that farm.
That's right. So it looks like James is going to trade off his wolf token, or his beast token, I should say, for that 3/2 Strangleroot Geist. You may notice Olivia not blocking here. That's because the Ravager of the Fells dealt 2 damage to her, meaning that she would trade off with that Strangleroot Geist if she blocked it.
Yes. So, big swing coming in there. James is going to come out looking much worse for the wear. He might have some options here. There's a Grave Titan in hand, and if he can just get the mana to put that together, he'll be in an okay spot. But the other tricky part is that one of these players would need to double spell to eliminate this 4/4 from being in contention. And once it does, that's just going to make more wolves.
That's right. And quick reminder to our viewers at home, this is Magic Block Party. This is a modified modern format where our players got to build their own block with 4 sets from the modern card pool. And so if they chose a core set and 3 other Magic expansion sets that are modern legal, and use the modern banned list and the cards in those sets to build these decks that you're seeing here.
Oh no!
Oh no!
James offers the handshake, no 6th land, but he had triple Titan.
Triple Titan, that's rough.
That Primeval Titan, if it only cost 5, it would have solved all the problems.
That's true. But yeah, here we see one of the downfalls to playing cards like Birds of Paradise and Lotus Cobra. While they can make mana and accelerate James into those Titans, if they don't stick on the field for too long, Chris's removal spells can get them off the field and make it so that he can't cast them.
Yep, and just the unfortunate situation here is that this game is...
Yeah, if James had hit a land there, he would have played down the Grave Titan and had a whole horde of zombies to block Chris's creatures. But it was not to be. Not to be,
and just Chris has got too much damage coming back the other way.
We have the Professor on your right playing Actual Affinity.
Yeah.
Against Michelle Rapp on your left playing Living End. And again, our players in these preceding 4 weeks leading up to this event all got to craft the sets from which they could choose. They picked a core set and then 3 additional sets that they drafted.
That's right.
And Michelle and the Professor both went for very specific strategies.
That's right. Both strategies that were drafted by these players are relatively insulated. The Professor, of course, going for those affinity cards, those artifact cards. I believe Darksteel and Mirrodin were both selected by the Professor. So he got the whole block. Darksteel, Mirrodin, and Fifth Dawn. Michelle Rapp, of course, going for Living End and a bunch of cycling creatures. So the strategies that both players went for are very unique and were not obstructed by any other players in the draft.
Absolutely. The Professor played round 1 against Jerry Thompson, and Jerry won that one 2-1. Meanwhile, Michelle played against Josh Leckway with a Jeskai control type deck with Geist of St. Traff. And he just ran out of mana leaks. He couldn't mana leak all the living ends.
Yeah.
Michelle got there. And I think really Michelle really took a look at this format and took advantage of it over any of the other players.
Michelle's deck design is incredible. I mean, Living End, of course, one of the modern powerhouses, one of the more powerhouse decks in the modern format right now. It's a combo deck, and it allows you to pull creatures out of your graveyard using that cycling effect to get them there.
Absolutely. So we're taking a look at this Aether Vial, Disciple of the Vault, and Arcbound Ravager board for the Professor, squaring off against not even a cycled card yet from Michelle.
Correct.
Here comes a Cranial Plating, and how do you like this?
Cranial Plating really brings the pain in Actual Affinity, or in Infinity in general. This card is extraordinarily powerful. It's an equipment that gives +1/+0 for each artifact in play.
There's a cycle of a Desert Ceradon from Michelle, and another, I believe that was a Monstrous Carabid. So
yes.
2 cycle creatures in the graveyard. One of the critical cards in Living End is Arcbound Ravager, and the Professor has it down already in the Living End matchup. How does this play out exactly?
So the way this plays out is all of the artifact creatures in play for the Professor can be sacrificed to that Ravager, and then when Living End goes off, it actually takes a picture of the creatures in play, takes a picture of the creatures in the graveyard, and makes them change places. So all of the artifact creatures will go to the graveyard before Living End resolves, and when it does, it'll go ahead and pull them all back out because Ravager allows you to sacrifice artifacts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including itself.
And the Cranial Plating is getting equipped to this Disciple of the Vault, and the Professor, considering his follow-up here, that Aether Vial's ticked up to 3.
Yes.
Interestingly, the Professor does have 3 copies of Etched Champion, which was a special bonus for receiving a perk in his fundraising round this past 4 weeks. So, again, we've got Disciple of the Vault with a Cranial Plating. We've got this Arcbound Ravager, and here comes another swing. Disciple of the Vault says crunch. Arcbound Ravager also swinging in.
Yeah, it looks like that Disciple of the Vault getting in for 5, I believe, plus the Ravager's 1.
And here comes, another cycle from Michelle. That is going to be Horror of the Broken Lands. Another horror, triple Horror of the Broken Lands cycled.
Has the set, able to draw through a big portion of her deck. The one thing that's awesome about this Living End deck is all of the cycling cards that allow you to find Violent Outbursts, your initiator cards. They're all creatures that you want to be in the graveyard. So by cycling all of these cards, Michelle is able to dig down into her deck to find a critical mass of certain creatures in her graveyard and then play Living End to go ahead and get that creature swap on. The issue for the Professor right now is he actually doesn't have a lot of artifact creatures in play. He only has the Disciple and the Ravager. So it's going to be on the Professor to go ahead and build a board with the cards that he has available to him.
Absolutely. Before Michelle can get off that cascaded living end, essentially.
Yes.
There's kind of a race for time here for the Professor. And Michelle, of course, has 5 creatures now in her graveyard. 3 Horror of the Broken Lands, a Monstrous Carabid, and that Desert Ceradon. Here comes another cranial plating. And this is some big-time power action here.
This actually is probably game here because that attack is going to be for an incredible amount. I believe it's going to be for 13, I want to say.
Sure, I think that Michelle's only out here is a Violent Outburst in hand.
It has
right?
to, it has to come right now.
Oh, and Michelle has the Violent Outburst in hand.
Oh my goodness! But she doesn't have the green.
No
That comes into play. Tapped land, the cycling land. That is a critical moment. And actually, the Professor, I think, is going to get this one.
That Canyon Slough came into play tapped.
Oh my
and
goodness!
Michelle was
and
unable
that's
to.
The game.
Professor
that
takes game 1 with actual affinity over Michelle Rapp's living end with the Violent Outburst in hand.
My
Okay, and welcome back. We're back to the action. The Professor just joined us in the booth, and that was just so awesome to hear the Professor's words. And I also want to say thechalice.causvox.com. If you were moved to give, please give now. Thechalice.causvox.com. Check out our slew of amazing thank you gifts and give now. Michael Tessier in the booth here with Jordan Isaka, here to bring you Game 2.
I'm excited to see what happens, how this unfolds.
Yeah, taking a look at the prof sideboard, I saw no graveyard hate.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why Michelle Rapp looks like her deck is so well prepared for this event. A lot of the players just they kind of avoided or didn't even want to consider the graveyard as an area to consider. I mean, like Living End is just such a graveyard-oriented deck that you either have hate for those strategies or you don't.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I don't think that Michelle has any ingot chewers or things like that that would be artifact hate either.
Ingot Chewer is a sweet one.
That's a great one. Great one.
That's Evoke for 1 red, right?
Absolutely.
And then it destroys her artifact in play.
Yeah. I think all I'm seeing from Michelle is a 4th copy of Living End in the sideboard. Probably not necessary in this matchup. And 3 Brindle Boars. That could be something you might consider bringing in. How do you like that?
Potentially, when I was out there talking to Michelle, it sounded like she just wasn't quite sure how fast the Professor's deck was. I mean, we saw a turn 3 equipped cranial plating and then another one right after that. And that was the game. It was the amount of damage that was coming in from the Professor was just astronomical. I mean, I think he dealt in the final turn, he could have dealt an upwards of 15 damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Between the cranial plating's attacks and then the sacrifices to the Disciple of
with
All.
that Disciple in play.
Yeah, amazing.
I also want to give a shout-out to Chris G. and Christopher S., both for donating to thechalice.causvox.com, donating to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and making mentorship possible for over 800 kids who are on the wait list.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for your gifts, and if you folks are inspired, please log on to thechalice.causvox.com right now and give. We only have 2 rounds left in this entire event.
Yeah.
This is your last opportunity to get the playmat, the pin, any of our other thank you gifts. We do not have much time left. Now is the time to log on. And if you give at the $120 playmat plus pin bundle level, you'll also receive a signature spellbook Jace for free.
That's an awesome product.
In addition to all the other things that we already have.
The alternate arts in that product are just amazing.
Our players are mulliganing down to 6 for both of them. And the Professor's looking at his 6 here. Parachromatic Spheres, Disciple of the Vault, and not a lot else.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Professor has any of his key cards that make his deck really hurt. Cards like Archbound Ravager or Cranial Plating, those are cards that he would love to see here.
Right, Michelle taking a look at her hand. We see a couple Minotaur, the set of Minotaurs, and I believe a Horror of the Broken Lands. And the thing about the Living End deck is that you have built-in kind of card draw with these cyclers.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to start with a Cascade card in hand, though it's helpful.
Yeah, that's certainly like one of the big positives about the Living End deck is that it actually mulligans relatively well, and especially against a deck like Actual Affinity, where, I mean, she's going to be racing for turn 3, but once you get your cycling going, you can go ahead and find those like Hordeling Outburst or any of those Cascade cards and just fire away.
The Violent Outburst, yeah, of course. And Michelle now mulliganing down to 5, perhaps looking for one of those Cascade cards. And I also want to point out that this is our block party round 2 out of 3. After this round, we'll have the final round of our entire event. We'll crown a champion of the Chalice, our first ever Chalice. thechalice.causevox.com. Log on now, check out our thank you gifts, and get them before this event is over. There's not much time left, folks. Here we go, turn 1. That is Michelle with a Canyon Slew. Meanwhile, Professor has a turn 1 Aether Vial.
And the Professor actually scribed that Aether Vial to the top, so I think he feels like that's an important card, and it certainly is. You know, it helps out his mana and his colors of mana a little bit, but that being said, he already has that Glimmer Void in play, so might not be too much of an issue.
And there is a tapped Dragon Skull Summit, followed by a Chromatic Sphere for the Prof, and a cycled Deadshot Minotaur for Michelle.
Top deck for Michelle. She's finding all the lands that she needs, but
there's another land for Michelle coming to play tapped. Disciple of the Vault, the follow-up for the Prof, off of an Aether Vial, and that's an end of turn. Vialed in Disciple. Here's the draw.
Correct. And the Professor kind of, I mean, he's floundering a little bit on action cards. It looks like he's got, yeah, there's not a ton, so he's going to go ahead and cycle this.
Okay, so Chromatic Sphere likely cycling for red is what I've heard the Professor doing. And we'll take a look at what he finds. And that Disciple of the Vault's going to trigger off that Chromatic Sphere.
Correct.
So gain 1, lose 1, is that right?
No, it's just it's just a straight drain.
Just lose 1, okay.
Activation here, more spheres and stars for the Professor. More spheres.
And a swing for 1, Michelle down to 18. Pass the turn, and end of turn, Michelle's going to cycle.
It's one of the, I think this is a land cycling card here. I think it's a Swamp Cycler, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, that could be Valley Rennet, I believe.
And of course,
Forest Cycle, yep.
Yeah.
Valley Rennet, yep.
Michelle needs to go ahead and find. I mean, what the nice thing about the start from the Professor is he doesn't have any of those really painful cards. He doesn't have like Plating or Ravager like I was talking about, but he also doesn't have access to Edge Champion or anything with power 2 or greater would potentially put a quick clock on this game.
Right, absolutely. And we'll untap Michelle with 1 Cycler in the graveyard. And a land for turn, Dragon Skull Summit.
Michelle considering what to do here. It's kind of nice because Michelle's cycling effects can all happen at instant speed. So if she wants to react to the Professor at instant speed, she can either cycle or go for a living end effect if she has one that's instant speed.
Prof with the draw. Mountain the play. Again, not much in the way of creature and action for the Prof.
I think he's thinking about firing up that Blinkmoth Nexus. Oh, he's going to go ahead and activate the sphere here.
Okay, sphere. Cracking that sphere for red. Michelle drained another life, and there's the draw, Arcbound Worker for the Professor.
Going to go ahead and deploy that as well. Or it looks like he's deploying
Solemn Simulacrum.
Interesting.
Wow, big-time inclusion in this deck, and a little surprising. What do you think of this?
Yeah, the Prof talked a little bit about how he picked up M12, I believe, is the set that's from. And that was one of the big considerations he was making when he was picking his core set. But Simulacrum certainly helps out his mana and potentially helps out his long-term draws. The nice thing about Simulacrum is when it switched places within play in his graveyard when it dies, he can go ahead and draw an additional card. So that's an important factor here, as card draw in these aggro decks is usually relatively scarce.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an opportunity for the Prof to get that. And here comes a swing from Disciple of the Vault. Michelle down to 16 now. There's a cycle from Michelle at end of turn, followed by another Archfiend of Ifnir. And there's another Deadshot Minotaur. Now we're loaded up.
Yeah.
5 creatures in the graveyard for Michelle. If she can find a Cascade effect, this is going to be a big-time turn. Does she have it?
Yeah, her graveyard is absolutely stacked. There's so many creatures, and they're not just – the thing about the cycling creatures is they're not small. They're actually like 6'4s, and they have funny power and toughnesses, but they're big creatures.
Right. And what's so cool is that Michelle could see through all of the deck building restrictions and build this entire deck. There's almost no consolation she gave up. She just built Living End.
That's right. That's right.
Here comes a Chromatic Sphere and cycled for the Prof. Michelle is going to take another point of damage. And the Prof is going to draw a Frogmite and Arcbound Worker in hand for him. Do you think the Prof is holding back and not playing out into that Living End?
You know, I'm not quite sure. I do think he's probably biding his time a little bit. But that being said, you know, the cards that he's holding back are going to have a hard time competing with what's in the graveyard for Michelle Rapp.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that is an Arcbound Worker joining the battlefield. We'll have a counter on it soon. Blinkmoth Nexus activated from the Professor. And I do believe Michelle has a Demonic Dread in hand.
All right. The one thing I will say is that I think this kind of demonstrates how Living End can mulligan relatively well, and how, you know, these aggro-style decks that are focused around a certain specific amount of cards, they don't really mulligan that well. The Professor is missing a lot of the key pieces that really makes his deck hurt, and Michelle just needs to find a card with Cascade.
Right. So that was a swing for 4 from the Prof, and here comes a Monstrous Carabid at end of turn for Michelle, cycled. Deadshot Minotaur, cycled.
You can really feel the amount of, I mean, Michelle is really charging up.
Right, absolutely.
And when this
Sheltered Thicket, I believe, also going to get cycled. That's the Canyon Slough there. And maybe Michelle doesn't have the Cascade effect yet.
she's digging in there.
There's
and
a
another
Rootbound
land.
Crag. That third card from the back of her hand. I can't quite tell if that is a Demonic Dread or not. Rootbound Crag deployed, and it is not indeed. She does not have a cycler in hand.
She's dug that far into her deck. I mean, there's 6 lands in play. There's 8 cards in her graveyard. So
right.
I want to say that she's dug, 2/3 of the way through her deck and has not found it.
Has not found it, and I think that she could have gone for a couple cyclers in her main phase, trying to dig for that demonic, the Demonic Dread. And here comes the Prof. He's got a big time board now, and this really is threatening to take over. Could end the game quickly.
Michelle rearranging her mana, I will say that some of the cyclers that Michelle has gone ahead and used, she could also deploy to the board and play as actual creatures. That's one of the really nice back end strategies that you have when you're playing Living End.
Yeah.
Just play your cyclers and just start building a board.
Absolutely, those are big time creatures. And the Prof has activated a Blinkmoth Nexus, considering his next play. That Frogmite came into play last turn, so he'll be able to swing with that. And this could be a big swing here. Here comes 1, 3, 5, 6, 7 damage in for the Professor. And Michelle is going to be down to 3. And here's the thing. Even if Michelle does find a Living End, a Cascade effect right now, that Disciple the Vault will do it.
Yeah, the Disciple trigger is gonna hit all of the artifacts that are going to the graveyard, and it's just a tough spot. I mean, this is the reason why Affinity was such a powerhouse deck back in that old standard.
And Michelle looks like with and there's the Demonic Dread off the
top.
top.
Oh my goodness!
Unbelievable. That could have done it.
Just one
turn
late.
Just a turn ago. Perhaps one cycle earlier. And there's the Demonic Dread, and unfortunately that Disciple of the Vault is going to end it.
Demonic Dread being cast here, and of course, everybody knows at home, the Living End deck actually, it plays around this Cascade effect, and there's no 2-drops or 1-drops in the deck. The only other card that could be cast off this Cascade is a card with Suspend called Living End, which takes all the creatures in play and makes that player sacrifice them and brings all the creatures in the graveyard, back from the graveyard into play.
Right, absolutely. And we're digging for that Living End here. And once we find it, we'll cast it, and then the bad news is going to hit. Disciple of the Vault.
And I think it's interesting, too, because in current Affinity or Robot builds in Modern, they don't play Disciple of the Vault. They don't play a lot of these older versions of cards, you know?
Absolutely. Normally, Arcbound Ravager is about the only card that matters in this matchup.
Yeah.
But in this case, Disciple of the Vault also matters, and that's going to be the end for Michelle. Michelle just had all of the living end cards.
Yeah,
so
it
cool.
was so
cool.
tough.
But
I mean,
here it is.
If you think about the probabilities, she was, I mean, 2/3 or 1/3 of the way through her deck, and how many cascade effects does she run? Like 9 or something?
Sure.
8?
7, yeah.
Or 7? Yeah, so she has tons of opportunities to draw into those, and just the deck was not giving her the right cards,
About 1 out of every 11 cards or so.
Yeah, she should have a cascade
cascade
effect.
effect,
So the percentages were on her side, but unfortunately, that's how Magic goes.
Yep. And it looks like Professor and Michelle talking over the finer details of the Disciple of the Vault and how that trigger will work.
Yeah.
That will take care of this
Kenji.
final 3 points of life for Michelle. We saw
Kenji.
Kenji leaning in. Well,
That's
let me
right.
Make sure I read this Disciple of the Vault
Yeah.
correctly, right? And the Professor, if we're right about the ruling here, will walk away with his second win of the event.
Wow.
There's the handshake. Professor wins 2-0, taking out Michelle Rapp in the second round of our block party. We've got so much more action to go, though.
Welcome back, everybody. It's TJ Rogers, joined by Hallie Santo, and these two players are getting set to go. It's Jerry Thompson up against Josh Leckway. Josh showed up with Jeskai control, and on the right side of the field, now this is an interesting one. Magnivore Land Destruction is what Jerry has cooked up and brought to share with the class.
That's right. We were a little unsure about what Jerry had planned as this draft got going. He started off with Champions of Kamigawa, and I believe 9th edition or 8th edition?
9th edition,
9th edition. So, yeah, he took a pretty unique route, and we were not sure what he was doing until that last week when all of his picks slotted into place. But he has come prepared with a land destruction deck, and the creature he's going to be using to end the games is going to be Magnivore, a star creature whose toughness is equal to the number of sorceries in Jerry's library and Jerry's graveyard. Sorry. So yeah, this is going to be a very interesting match.
And those sorceries that he does have, Demolish, 4 mana, destroy a target artifact or land. There's also Eye of Nowhere, which is a 2 mana, just return target permanent, sort of a sorcery boomerang. We've got Sleight of Hand, Pyroclasm, Stone Rain, Tidings, which is, I believe, 5 mana, draw 4 as a sorcery, and Wildfire.
Yep. Yeah,
4 damage to each creature, and they all sacrifice 4 lands.
That's right. We saw Wildfire doing good work for Jerry in his previous matches. Very good board wipe for him here. So we're going to see how he does against Josh Leckway, playing a more of a control strategy. He does not have a lot of counter spells necessarily, just 4 mana leaks in his main deck, but he does have those 4 copies of Spell Queller, which can come down and do what a tempo deck wants to do, cut your opponent off while also applying pressure.
And what these two players are battling for at the moment is for that kind of shot at the 3rd, 4th slot. Of course, after this is going to be the finals, and we're going to see a Clifftop retreat from Josh, followed up by an island from Jerry. It's Sulfur Falls, and it is going to be Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Not long for this world, eliminated by a lightning bolt. That was now 1/7 of the creatures that Jerry brought to the table in the graveyard.
That's true, and Jace Vryn's Prodigy doing really good work for Jerry. This is something that can load up his graveyard with sorceries for that Magnivore, as well as helping him find the cards he needs to control Josh's board. Josh looking a little slim on mana here, but he has finally found that blue source, so that mana leak in his hand is now online.
Yeah, and the creature package in this Jeskai control deck ended up pretty nice because he ended up with Snapcaster Mage, Geist of St. Traft, Baneslayer Angel, and he's also got Bedlam Reveler and Spell Queller.
That's right, yeah. These are all pretty solid cards for a spell-based deck like Josh's, and he's going to be looking to land one of these strong creatures, whether that is a Baneslayer, maybe even a Geist or a Spell Queller, and just take that all the way. But he is looking a little bit constrained on mana right now, and Josh really wants to hit his land drops so that he can start playing more than 1 spell a turn.
All right, and it's 6 lands here for Jerry. He draws Sleight of Hand. He's going to fire that one down. Take a look at the top 2 cards of the library. Put one of them in your hand. the other one on the bottom of the library, but also, most importantly, it leaves one more sorcery in that graveyard. He's got a Magnivore in hand currently, but 4 mana for a pretty small attacking creature with haste is not where he wants to be right now.
That's right. With both these players playing fairly reactive decks, Jerry's looking to sculpt his hand as best he can and find the right answers to what Josh is going to be adding to the board.
Looks like we might have a couple of Pyroclasms. Actually, is that all 4 copies? It may not actually be a Magnivore in there. That might be all 4 copies of Pyroclasm in hand. And this is going to be Tidings, which is going to be answered by Mana Leak? Yes. Jerry,
but Jerry has a Mana Leak of his own, and Josh left with only 2 lands there. So Jerry is going to get to resolve that card draw spell and load up, maybe even discard a couple of sorceries there to make some big Magnivores later on.
That's the nice thing, too, because that's draw 4 cards, but discarding to hand size is actually, in a way, actively good for Jerry. It's just a way to get more. It's build your own Faithless Looting.
That's right. Yeah, those Pyroclasms are not going to do a ton in this matchup, though. That Geist of St. Traft is maybe going to make Jerry think twice about discarding those. That Geist has hexproof, so Jerry's targeted removal is not going to do anything here. Looks like he's going to go for a Stone Rain.
So I like this because that means that now he can actually, he had that Pyroclasm.
Oh, another Pyroclasm. Great.
Because he's still got another one in hand, but by eliminating that blue source, he could have shifted through phases to eliminate the possibility that Josh should be able to have a Mana Leak to keep that Geist of St. Traft alive. Uses another Stone Rain, and now Josh the Jeskai deck is looking like a Boros. And things are not lining up quite well for him. This land destruction game plan is just coming together.
Absolutely, yeah. Josh is pretty spread out as far as mana goes. He definitely needs those blue sources to be able to interact with Jerry's board. And also looking to keep up.
Oh, that was a Magnivore. Okay.
That was a Magnivore.
Magnivore comes down. I think the 4th Pyroclasm is now in hand or something to that effect, though it might have been a Magnivore earlier that went. The art from Magnivore
and
Pyroclasm
yes.
are a little close to me.
That's right. He did discard that Magnivore earlier.
It's Snapcaster coming down for Josh. And this, I'm going to need to try and get at the size of this Magnivore. I'm going to go ahead and send down to the table thing.
So it looks like Josh is looking to cast a Snapcaster Mage and flashback Lightning Bolt here, but our players are working things out.
All right, I'm going to try and get an update there. Quite a few lands. We are now going to fire down. Oh, that was Wildfire, not
Wildfire,
Magnivore.
I see.
My goodness, the arts on those cards are also similar to me. Okay, so what just happened?
Yeah.
That was not the Magnivore. That was Wildfire, which is a 6-mana sorcery. Each player sacrifices 4 lands, and each creature takes 4 damage. So that was a little bit off there. All these white border cards that all have like an overarching thing. Now we're looking at it.
And Josh is just going to scoop it up here.
Okay. Whew. There's some of those white-bordered cards that are just throwing me off. Those arts a little bit closer than I expected when I was looking at them before.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know these arts. They're pretty solid. And then they're just all reaching arms.
Oh, yeah. Jerry's deck is all arms.
It's all arms, which is interesting because Ashland's deck is the one that was
with arms wide open. That's right. Yeah, we were. Ashland was goldfishing her deck earlier today, and she noticed that Ulamog and Primeval Titan were both in the same pose, stretching out their arms like that, and so that was the inspiration for her deck name.
All right, so they're going to be heading into the sideboard here. Couple of interesting options from Jerry's deck. He's got more copies of Pyroclasm. He's got a little bit of Negate, which would be solid against this this spell-based version of the deck. Also has copies of Karn, Sound of Urza, Maloku, the Clouded Mirror. I'll be pretty curious to see how he ends up going for his sideboarding here.
Yeah, Josh actually does not have very much that he can bring in this matchup. His deck is really geared toward beating some of those creature decks and some of those aggressive decks. He brought in some Stony Silences for in case he ran into the Professor's Affinity deck. For this one, he may just want to bring in those Flash Freezes. Right, so we are back in the booth. We have Josh Leckway and Jerry Thompson facing off for Game 2. Jerry took that game pretty handily. Let's see if Josh can leverage his Jeskai control deck in Game 2.
So we're actually about to see something interesting here. Josh is, I believe, and I'm told, cashing in one of the benefit cards that he got at the very beginning of this event for how he was able to get some of that interaction going.
Whoa.
You have to sacrifice it
Chalice.
to the Chalice. And what this is 2 hands. And so early on, Josh was awarded, based on the amount of interaction that he got leading into this event, he is going to get 2 7-card hands and pick the better one. He has decided that this is the time to use it.
I mean, it's the last match of the day. If you haven't used it now, you better use it.
I mean, that's good sense. You know,
Yeah.
waiting right up into the end. Actually, we also had Michelle use hers, and that was to begin the game with an extra card. And now I happen to know that heading into the finals next round, there is still 1 unused.
Oh, really? Whose is that?
That would be Kenji, who may have the ability to start one of his with an additional 5 life against Chris Van Meter and his green-red aggro deck.
That can make a huge difference, especially since those 2 decks are looking to be very aggressive. So yeah, that life total change could make a difference there.
All right, and it looks like Josh likes this hand. He's on the play, and we're going to kick things off with the Steam Vents. Jerry Thompson selecting his land. He's got an Opt available, which, while it isn't a sorcery, it does help him continually find more of them, and it's a 2 of in the deck.
Absolutely. Like we said, these are 2 very interactive decks, and so Jerry is going to be looking to find the best interaction that he can here.
Like Stone Rain? That's
Like
interaction,
Stone Rain,
right?
that's some interaction. You're interacting with your opponent's land, so there you go.
One could argue that that is interaction. I'm starting to realize, I'm curious, do we know? I don't think that the basic lands were lined up to be by set, but one thing that I'm really enjoying seeing is that all these cards that they're playing otherwise are all from the set that they drafted, even if it's been printed multiple times.
Oh, interesting.
With very few exceptions, I believe that all of the cards that you're seeing are the version that was printed in the set that they drafted.
That's correct, yeah. We wanted to make these cards very easy for our viewers and for our commentators to recognize, so doing the best we can. As noted earlier, Card Kingdom did fulfill all of these deck lists. Our players submitted their deck lists last week on Tuesday, and Card Kingdom provided all the cards that they are using.
Is that an end-step spell queller?
Yep, it is spell. I think the spell queller was just going to come in and try and swing out, but Jerry had a mana leak for it.
Yeah, and I think that might be Josh recognizing that he needs to get pressure down on the battlefield pretty quickly against this one, because Jerry's really good at removing lands and keeping spells from being cast, but we don't see a ton that answers spells that have already been cast.
That's right. Yeah, Jerry does have those pyroclasms, but that is not the best answer to Spell Queller. Can take down a Geist of St. Trapt, but not a 3-toughness creature.
And he goes and draws another land. He's going to play his 4th land here for the turn and just pass it back. We know about the fact that he's got some of these Stone Rains in hand, choosing not to go for it just yet.
Yeah, we may see him start to go after Josh's blue sources, as he did in the previous game.
All right, and it's going to be a Geist of St. Trapt that comes down. We saw Jerry earlier use a mana leak. Is he going to have another one? We're going to fire off an Opt and find out. Taking a look at the top card. This is going to go to the bottom. Can he find the mana leak for it?
Well, there's a negate, but that's not going to get the job done.
It's halfway there. It's halfway there. I bet in his mind he was thinking, all right, come on, counterspell, and got punished by not being too specific.
That is true.
3 mana here, and it is time to make it rain. Stone Rain targeting what appears to be the Steam Vents. And we're getting a little bit of mana floating from Josh, though the interesting thing there is that...
Yeah, we may see another mana leak battle here. Josh tapping those 2 mana preemptively, thinking if he wants to fire it off, knowing that Jerry does not have the 3 mana to pay for it, though Jerry might have a mana leak of his own.
It would have... from Josh's perspective, too, it would have had to have been a mana leak that was just drawn, because he didn't end up countering the Geist of St. Trapt.
That is correct.
We know that there's a negate, but he ends up actually still going for it. Jerry allows it and fires down this Pyroclasm just to eliminate the one threat that's on the board.
Yeah, Jerry taking advantage of Josh tapping out there, being very patient, not negating that mana leak, knowing that he can use that window to get the Pyroclasm, to get the Geist off the table.
All right, 6 mana available. We do have another copy of Stone Rain in hand, also a copy of Jace Vryn's Prodigy. What's the nickname that you've assigned that card?
I happen to be partial to literal actual baby Jace.
Really? Okay. So then is Jace Bell and Party Jace for you?
Oh, that's just baby Jace.
They're both baby Jace.
But this one is literal actual Baby Jace.
Oh, yeah, that's the full title. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So I thought you were introducing the title, not
Oh,
actually
no.
presenting it already.
No, that is it.
Okay.
And Josh flooding out a little bit here. Those lands may be going away soon. Oh,
Looks like we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at the donation amount leading into that sleight of hand. The production team just trying to give us a quick little reminder of what this is all about, raising
That's
money
right.
for big brothers, big sisters. You can go to thechalice.cosvox.com and check it out. Be a part of this amazing community and help build some others in the world.
absolutely.
So that sleight of hand is happening. We've got a Stone Rain chipping away at this mana base for Josh, but luckily he's been drawing plenty of land.
That's right. Plenty of lands and not a whole lot else. So this could be Jerry's game here.
Tidings.
Tiding's going to look at 4 more cards.
What an... Do you remember how good Opportunity was at 6 mana?
Oh, yes.
This one's 5 and a sorcery, so it makes her Magnivore just a little bit more courageous. Josh kicking the turn right back. He's got a Spell Queller, and is that a Think Choice I see?
I think it is.
All right, so a Think Twice and a Spell Queller holding the line for Josh Leckway. And Jerry looking like, I think you see a Wildfire and a Negate. And not a whole lot else. I think he's got lands, Wildfire, Negate. Which
Right.
the Wildfire doesn't do an enormous amount. I guess it puts Josh down to 3 mana.
That is true. Yeah, Jerry with plenty of lands here. Yeah, he's just going to fire it
Oh.
off. Or
That's the
That's the Magnivore.
I know. All these whiteboarder cards. So that is the Magnivore. I don't quite see what that power and toughness is at the moment, but from what I can tell, it looks to be a 8/8.
Wow. That's a big Magnivore. So he's going to fire off the Spell Queller here. Spell Queller is going to get it. And there's a Think Twice from Josh.
And that Spell Queller, when it enters the battlefield, it's able to exile target spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater. And that remains exiled until Spell Queller leaves. So if Jerry can come up with an answer to it, like say, and I'm just spitballing here, a Wildfire,
Right.
then he would have the opportunity to eliminate that Spell Queller, get his own Magnivore back, and start swinging in.
Absolutely, yeah. So Jerry's going to be digging for Wildfire here. Otherwise, that Spell Queller can carry things pretty well. And there's a Geist of St. Traft.
And I think he's got a Mana Leak to back it up as well. So this is going to be a land. That looks like a Wildfire to me.
It is.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And a Mana Leak when your opponent has 3 untapped mana?
That's right.
Geez.
So that Magnivore is going to come right back in.
And I think that is a swing for 9. Let's take a look at that life counter for Josh, because this is about to take a significant dive. This could be looking in the realm of a 2-turn clock.
That's right, yeah. Magnivore, a really strong creature in this type of archetype. Jerry's just chaining together all of these powerful sorceries, destroying Josh's lands, drawing cards, finding the Magnivores and spells to protect it. So yeah, it looks like Josh is deciding which lands he wants to sacrifice. He does get a choice in the matter.
Yep, and I think right now we're just seeing him still line that up. So while the Magnivore is attacking, really the Wildfire hasn't quite yet resolved.
That's right.
Fully, we're catching that one up, and you can take a look at that life total bar where Josh is down to 11. So this is a 9/9 Magnivore.
Yep, our production team has confirmed it. That is a 9/9.
Wow. So it's just going to be a pass back, and knowing that Jerry has got 2 negates as well to keep this protected, he's going to fire down this sleight of hand. It's a rough spot to be in if you're Josh Leckway. This Magnivore looks like it is just voracious, and it is chewing up the competition.
That's right. There isn't much that Josh can find here.
2 life. And it's a pass back. You know what? I like this. Josh making him have it. You never know. Jerry could always... Ooh!
Oh,
look at that!
condemn!
Condemn from Josh, but he does
But
have the
there's
mana leak
a
and
mana
the
leak.
negates. I'm going to get excited anyway.
Josh is going to pay, and Jerry still has that negate, so that is going to do it. Jerry Thompson taking the match.
Baneslayer in hand, but unable to do much with it. That is a win from Jerry Thompson in a very clean 2-0. This Magnivore Land Destruction deck is just not what you would have expected.
That's a
Jumping
sweet
into this.
deck. It's
Yeah.
a really sweet deck.
Right now, thechalice.cosvox.com, please. Log on now. Check out those great thank you gifts. Here we are. Here we go. The
Chris Stanby.
championship round. The winner of this match will be the first ever Chalice champion, Chris Van Meter against Kenji Igashira. Jordan.
I'm so excited. I mean, we've got Chris Van Meter on Real Monsters versus Kenji on Green Red Aggro. A Zoo-style deck. He's bringing all the small creatures to play. I mean, Chris was able to start off with that turn 1 Temple. He went ahead and scryed. I believe he kept it on top, and Kenji's got it going with a fast clock. I think that's an experiment 1. I'm not quite sure.
It could be a Pelt Collector, which was one of his special choice cards for winning a perk. And there is a Draconic Roar going to take out that Pelt Collector. Chris Van Meter had a strong turn 2, fending off the early pressure from Kenji. Here's a follow-up. That is a Bloodstain Mire. Kenji has access to Lightning Mauler, has access to Vexing Devil.
I think he's got a Flinthoof Boar in hand as well. I mean, his mana is so good. He's got the Shocklands, the fetches, and just it's all about efficient creatures for Kenji and potentially sneaking through some damage.
There's a Haven of the Spirit Dragon on the side of Chris Van Meter as Kenji fetches up that mountain. And you might be wondering, Haven of the Spirit Dragon, why? Well, I'll tell you why. Chris Van Meter has got Stormbreath Dragons.
He's got a couple of dragons. He's got Dragon Lord Atarka, which is huge, big time over the top. 8/8 flyer for 7, deals 5 damage to multiple targets in play. It's an incredible card.
Some big time plays here. Flinthoof Boar on the side of Kenji Igashira and a Fauna Shaman for Chris Van Meter. A Rootbound Crag unfortunately will have to come into play tap. And we're back to Kenji with that Flinthoof Boar. 3/3 right now.
That Fauna Shaman really opening up the deck for Chris Van Meter. He can go ahead and discard any creature that he has in his hand and find a creature from his deck. So that's an insane card right here and allows him to kind of toolbox his way.
Lightning Mauler, big time play from
goodness.
Kenji. We're crashing in for 5 points of damage. Is Chris going to opt to go for a trade here? Or?
I'm not quite sure. You know, Lightning Mauler is really bringing the heat. The one thing I will say is Chris Van Meter's deck is a little bit bigger over the top. So if he can preserve his life total, it could certainly help him towards the end stretch of this game.
Chris thinking about what he's doing. It looks like he's going to take that 5 points of damage. He's going to untap with that Fauna Shaman in play.
Yeah, he's certainly valuing the Fauna Shaman quite a bit here. He also just drew a 4th land. He's got a Xenagos in hand. So a couple of big-time plays and a Thunderbreak region. He's just going to have a little bit bigger creatures than Kenji. Kenji's side, wow, he's got some fuel for the fire, I have to say.
Taking a look at Chris Van Meter, folks. We are in the championship match. This is Chris Van Meter and Kenji Igashira playing to be Chalice champions, and we're all doing this for charity. Log on to thechalice.causebox.com and give the gift of mentorship. Here's a Xenagos,
that
the
is
Reveler.
a huge play. I mean, a Planeswalker, he can get incidental value every single turn. He's going to go ahead and make a 2/2 haster, I believe, and just decides not to attack.
That'll be a 2/2 on defense.
Absolutely.
That's a Satyr token in play, folks. And even though it had haste, he's keeping it back.
Yeah.
That Fauna Shaman still sitting there waiting to accumulate some value for Chris. Xenagos the Reveler, is this a critical play for Chris, and how dangerous is this for Kenji?
I think this is a huge play because Chris is going to go ahead and make as many tokens as he can. He's going to stonewall Kenji's early aggression and try to get to the 2nd level, which are a lot of his 4-drops. So this card is critical here, and I think is extraordinarily important.
So Kenji considering, is he going to swing at the Xenagos? It's going to be straight at Chris. Threatening 5 points of damage and diminishing Chris to potentially 10 life here. Flinthoof Boar and Lightning Mauler are in.
Yeah, Chris is certainly considering a block right now, and I think it's very important here. I mean, his life total is probably one of the most important things. The couple cards in Kenji's hand, he's got some sick ones. He's got 2 copies of Vexing Devil. He's got a Become Immense, and I think he's got a Gore Clan Rampager.
And there's a block for Chris Van Meter. That Satyr token is going to bite the dust. So does Lightning Mauler. Vexing Devil. Make a choice, Chris. Take 4, or do I get a 4/3?
The Punisher mechanic in full-fledged assault right here. A 4/3 for 1 single red. Potentially could be 4. Chris deeply considering here as, I mean, 12 life is not a ton to work with.
It looks like Chris going to take that 4 damage and drop to 8. Kenji has a backup Vexing Devil.
Yeah.
And here it comes.
Second
Make
verse.
a choice, Chris. 4/3 or 4 damage.
I think it's hard to take the 4. I mean, you see, look at Kenji's hand. He's got so much gas in hand.
Absolutely. And
Wow, he's got
little
a
does-
Searing Spear, too. He's got more direct.
Absolutely.
Wow,
That's
he's
4
taking-
damage. Chris Van Meter's dropping down to 4. Kenji with a Flint Hoof Boar in play and a Searing Spear in hand.
That
Can
is crazy.
Chris stave off this aggressive start from Kenji?
Chris needs a way to gain. I mean, he would love a way to gain life. If you remember, a long time ago when he was playing this monster-style deck, one of the key cards that he loved to play was Thragtusk. But he doesn't have access to that in this position, especially with the constraints of the Block Party event.
That's right. Chris, essentially, there's a
Den Protector, I
Den
believe.
Protector
Yeah, it's
for
going to go
Chris
ahead and
Van
flip
Meter.
up, and he's going to find a removal spell. That's Draconic Roar coming back.
Draconic Roar will reveal that Thunderbreak region,
Oh.
and Chris has now cleared Kenji's side of the board. Kenji with some burn in hand, but can he get these last points of damage through? Fauna Shaman in for 1.
Yeah, he's got, I mean, Kenji has 3 points in hand. He needs to find one more. One more, and it looks like Chris is somewhat stabilized here. Oh,
Chris Van Meter with some main deck life gain in the form of 1 Huntmaster of the Fells. There's a Flint Hoof Boar follow-up
okay.
joining the board. Chris Van Meter back to him. Thunderbreak Regent in hand, and now a Sylvan Caryatid.
Top deck, that's a good blocker right there. Caryatid, of course, an 0-3 defender. Not lining up great versus the Flint Hoof Boar, but Chris Van Meter, he's got a lot of additional cards in hand. He's got that region that we talked about.
Chris considering his options and putting aside some Sylvan Caryatid mana here.
Chris using that plus ability to make additional mana with Xenagos. I mean, before this event fired, Chris was talking about how awesome Xenagos is in his deck. It's got so many different modes, and it allows him to either accelerate or gum up the board.
All of those modes of Xenagos proving relevant already in this match. Folks, this is the championship match, our final round of this, our first ever Chalice event. Chris Van Meter on your right, Kenji Igashira on your left. The winner will be crowned Chalice champion. Log on to thechalice.causevox.com and give. If you believe in mentorship, giving the gift of mentorship, as our competitors do. They have donated their time to be here. For that one reason, there is a morph from Chris Van Meter.
I think Chris is doing it all over again. He did it again. He did it again. He bought back that Draconic Roar. Wow, Fauna Shaman just gets so much use, so much utility. An incredible play from Chris.
Morphed, that morphed Den Protector, able to buy back that Draconic Roar, and bye-bye Flint Hoof Boar. Chris crashes in for a big-time swing, and Kenji's down to 5.
Wow. This is incredible.
Kenji's
And he's
going to
scoop
Chris
it.
Van Meter wins, takes
He
that
was
win
at
from the
one. He was
claws
at
of
one.
defeat.
That's unbelievable. And this shows how comfortable Chris is with this deck.
Van Meter with a 1-lander.
A one-lander, you know, I've seen him with these hands, and the thing about it is his deck has a ton of mana sources.
Experiment 1, the play for Kenji. He's going to take 2 off that Stomping Ground. Coming in play.
That's a
untapped.
quick start for Kenji, and that's the exact creature he wants in play. That Experiment 1 is going to grow larger and larger as more creatures get deployed
There's a Vexing
here.
Devil, a choice for Chris Van Meter. No matter what, it comes into play and pumps that Experiment 1. Chris Van Meter is going to take 4. That Rootbound Crag was his play. I believe that was his top deck. Here's 2 for Kenji. Chris Van Meter all the way down to 14.
Critically, Kenji also was only on a one-lander.
Den Protector hitting the board for Chris Van Meter,
In
putting up
defense
a
mode.
stout defense. And there is, I believe that was a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Den Protector down.
Clearing the way, Kenji Igashira was able to get in there with his 2-2. Experiment 1, he draws another non-land card and become immense.
There's a mountain,
And
and there's a
another-
second Den Protector for Chris Van Meter. There's a land for Kenji.
Big top deck for Kenji as it unlocks most of the rest of his hand right now. He's going to go ahead and be able to deploy any of his 2-drops, potentially Lightning Strikes, any of those cards. I mean, Kenji is really reaching for it. You can see Chris is already at 10.
10 with that 2-1 Den Protector standing by.
Wait, no, he's not at 10. There's no way. I think the live totals did not get updated here. But we're going to go ahead and...
That is correct.
Oh, that is correct?
Burning Tree
Oh,
Emissary,
my
Burning Tree
goodness.
Emissary, and a Flint Hoof Boar. That Experiment 1 is a 3-3 and swinging in. Chris Van Meter has a choice to make here. Is he going to chump block? Look at the board from Kenji Igashira.
Instant board, just add water. Oh, my goodness. Two Grizzly Bears randomly appear into 3-3
Anger of the Gods of Chris Van Meter. That's an unbelievable play.
Oh my goodness, Kenji instantly regenerating that Experiment 1, but the board just gets cleaned off. And Experiment 1 drops down to a 1-1 again.
Haymaker for Haymaker. Kenji with that huge board gets completely wiped out by Anger of the Gods, save for 1. Experiment 1.
Oh my goodness, Kenji back down to square one, as they say.
Lightning Baller hits the board. This is going to be a crash in for 4. Chris Van Meter down to 6.
It's just Haymaker after Haymaker. That Lightning Mauler was huge. A haste creature that pumps his Experiment 1. Incredible.
Temple of Abandon for Chris Van Meter. He's got a Huntmaster with the Fells in hand.
It's 1 turn away. I mean, if Kenji has any burn, Chris is going down. Top deck. Now I think he's got a Raincore. He's going
to swing in for 4.
Here comes. It's time to get big. Oh no! It's
Searing Spear on Chris Van Meter. Kenji's going to take game 2, and we're going to game 3, folks. What a championship round! This is what the Chalice is all about. This is our final game, folks. Kenji is going to rip up his +5 life. We are ready to go. This is it.
Here comes the sacrifice. He has taken the 5 life card. I think he's ripping it up. There it goes. That is the power-up. This is 5 life that he has for this one game. Couple of high fives there. He's dropped the contents of that card, that power-up, into the Chalice.
That is the Chalice that will go to the champion. It's going to be one of these 2. Only Kenji Higashira or Chris Van Meter will be eligible to win, will be the champion. One of them will be the first ever Chalice champion after this game. Here we go. Chris Van Meter on the play. Kenji is going to take a mulligan.
Oh, my goodness. When it matters the most, Kenji needs to go ahead and go down to 6. That being said, that 5 life, if both players start trading, if it becomes a foot race, that 5 life could be a big deal.
Folks, if you're watching at home, tell your friends. Log on now to this stream. This has never been done before. We've never had a Chalice event before. This is a Magic event. 8 of your favorite Magic celebs have been here for one cause. That is to give the gift of mentorship to so many. Log on to thechalice.causevox.com and you can be part of that amazing impact. Kenji's going to keep 6. This is our last game.
I think he's scrying to the bottom, and he's going to go ahead and let Chris play a mountain and pass.
Back to Kenji. Top deck, Burning Tree Emissary. That could be explosive.
All right.
There is a Pelt Collector.
Okay. That's one of the cards that Kenji was able to pull in because he raised a bunch of funds right here. He's going to go ahead and have that on turn 1.
Chris Van Meter with a Forest has that Birds of Paradise in hand.
A couple of mana dorks for Chris. I mean, this is exactly how he wants to start the game off, but he's going to go with a Fauna Shaman.
Fauna Shaman is the play for Chris, and we're back to Kenji. There is a Rootbound Crag, and we could see an explosive turn here. Burning Tree Emissary is the start.
Trigger.
Pelt Collector up to 2.
Oh, damage right there. Removal spell and a Raincore coming down.
Unbelievable. This is a swing for 4 out of nowhere. Chris Van Meter has lost his Fauna Shaman and is down to 16. Kenji with that important +5 life perk.
I mean, Raincore is just an incredible card. Originally printed at common in Urza's Legacy. Just doing so much work for Kenji over the course of this this Chalice event. Kenji's swing for 4 there. I mean, Chris is at 16. He's got a clear board right now. He's going to figure out how to regain board control. I think he's weighing his options. I'm not quite sure. We know he has that Birds of Paradise. I'm not sure if he has a Draconic War or a Lightning Bolt or removal spell here. But it's going to be important for him to deploy something to the table to fight with Kenji.
Fauna Shaman, the play for Chris Van Meter.
Fauna Shaman. I mean, this is one of the cards that Chris was trying to save in play through the previous turn. So he's going to go ahead and deploy. Oh, my gosh.
It's a Burning Tree Emissary. He's got a Lightning Mauler in hand. There it is. Lightning Mauler is going to pair with that Burning Tree Emissary, giving it haste, and we're going to swing in for a big-time swing. This attack. Lightning Mauler going down. That Fauna Shaman just being a chump blocker. And that's a swing for 8.
Oh, my goodness.
Anger of the Gods out of Chris Van Meter. That's going to clear Kenji's board, and he's back to square 1 with a Rancor in hand.
Oh, that was a huge play from Chris. I mean, board wipes aplenty, but no additional land for Chris. He could be stuck this could close out the game.
There it is. There's a forest for Chris. Experiment with the Rancor was the play for Kenji. Replaying that Rancor that was returned to his hand after that Anger of the Gods. Here's a Birds of Paradise for Chris.
Chris getting his Squawk on, deploying that Birds into play, and a third Fauna. Is that a third one or second?
Third Fauna Shaman. Chris Van Meter.
A hat trick of Fauna Shamans. He also has that Lightning Bolt in back in reserve. My God. It's going to be on Kenji. Kenji has 2 lands in play. How can he get through this wall?
And there is the Lightning Bolt. That's going to take out that Experiment 1. Rancor will return to Kenji's hand. We're back to Kenji. Unbelievable magic from our 2 competitors. There's a Stomping Ground. Going to take Kenji down to 21. And here is a follow-up.
Arc Lightning is the play for Kenji.
Arc Lightning going to take out both of Chris Van Meter's plays. There's a
Huntmaster
that falls off the top.
Kenji grabs his head.
Chris Van Meter up to 10. And there is a 2/2 Werewolf token as well.
That was a huge swing.
It
Chris
was a
Van
Rancor
Meter
at the top for Kenji. Unfortunate draw. We're back to Huntmaster of the Fells,
and it
who is now a
flips.
4/4.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, that was just a huge swing. Chris Van Meter finding Huntmaster off the top.
Unreal.
It's
amazing magic from 2 of Magic's best. And here's a swing for 6 from Chris Van Meter. Kenji.
It's
Thinking
almost
about
like he
what he's
called
gonna
it.
do. Down to 15 now. Going to take his draw. Vexing Devil off the top.
Okay.
Vexing Devil. What does Chris choose? Will he take 4?
The Punisher mechanic. He's going to let it resolve. Interesting here. Okay.
There's
and he
a
knew he had.
Roar on that Vexing Devil. While Rancor was on the stack, Rancor is going to be gone for good. That means Kenji has 1 Rancor in hand. We're back to Chris Van Meter. 2 spells cast that turn, so Huntmaster is going to turn back. There's a Wolf token. There's a swing for 4. Kenji, Egashira down to 11.
Yeah, Kenji a little bit on the ropes right now. He's living off the top, and Chris at a healthy 12. I think he's going to need to find a creature here, and that's not quite a creature.
Kenji Rancors the Huntmaster and extends the hand. Chris Van Meter will win this game and the round and become our Chalice champion. First ever. Folks, you saw it here.